My name is Trace Bauer, and I am an English teacher and also the Global Education Coordinator at St. Xavier High School in Cincinnati. I think I have been on Zooms with maybe everyone in the past, so maybe we're not really meeting each other, but saying hello again. So Catherine asked me to share our school's experience with the Educating for Global Collaboration project, EGC. And so I'm going to take you through kind of my perspective on this project and the school's experience last year, where we have resumed another group, and we're about halfway through that. So I'll go ahead and get started. So what is Educating for Global Collaboration? It is an Ignatian framework, first and foremost, that is designed to help students become agents of global solidarity and collaboration, to become true global citizens who are committed to the well-being of humanity and the planet. Why is this initiative so important? I included a little graphic I keep on the bulletin board in my classroom that says the ultimate aim of Jesuit education is that full growth of the person which leads to action. I think that is important because of the action that's included in that message, and that really is one of the most vibrant parts of this project. It is an opportunity for students to consider how to put their faith into action, and it's an opportunity for encounter and collaboration with their Jesuit school peers. For St. Xavier High School, in terms of outcomes, my hope is that students will discern a global issue, global and local are interconnected, conduct research, collaborate with those Jesuit peers, and consider some action that they can take to address the issue that they've identified. I would say last year's group was pretty successful on all fronts, some more than others, and I'll get into that when I talk a little more about successes and challenges. So what does this framework look like when it is implemented? And here I'll just give an overview of the process. I tried to distill it into digestible terms for the purpose of this Zoom. The first thing that a facilitator would do in a school, and that can be a teacher, a faculty, or staff member, really any role within the school, would be to form a global action team, a GAT, and that is the term used for the facilitator and the student group. And I think the framework, as Catherine said in her introduction, is highly adaptable. So the first question a facilitator would ask, I think, is, where will I find the students who are going to participate in this program? That could be a club that already exists, like a social justice club or an environmental action type of club. It could be an extension of an experience that students are going to have or have had. For example, an immersion trip, exchange program, service activity, maybe something like IFTJ if students participate in that. It can be a component of the Ignatian Global Scholars Program. So in the case of our school, I let students count this as either an intercultural experience or a project. I work with them to see where that would fit the best. But those are just some examples, and your school context may be different, and you are probably thinking of some other way that you could implement it at your school. But the key there is that it is adaptable. I wanted to give just a very bare bones look at the overall structure of the framework as it's written and as it's been implemented at our school. I didn't really change much at all, didn't really need to. And this timeline would obviously look different for schools that are on completely different calendars. So if you are doing the EGC program and you end up collaborating with a school in a part of the world that doesn't start school in August or September, then you might not be aligned in certain places in the process, and that's totally fine. I'll get into that more in a little bit. So the first phase of the program is the context piece, that is assembling a team, discerning a purpose, and identifying a partner school to collaborate with. Then the second phase for us, this is November to January. December's kind of difficult because everything is so busy. Refining the the focus of the project, doing both local and global research, and then checking in with those global partners again. The third phase is reflection, where we reflect on the progress we've made and we start to think about what kind of action we might take toward this global issue that we've identified. Again, connecting with global partners along the way. The fourth step, actually implementing that action plan idea, which ideally would be some kind of local action, but I can imagine a scenario where there could be global components to that action, checking in with global partners, and then finally, evaluation at the very end, where the group would make some kind of a product to show what learning and action has taken place, and then opportunity for students to evaluate their experience and to reflect on it. So that is the overall timeline as it's worked in our school. One of the wonderful things about this program, I think, is the opportunity for students to really develop in Ignatian spirituality through the various resources that can be implemented. There's a lot of time for and a lot of necessity for discernment. This is a picture of last year's group at our very first meeting. They had completed a survey, and then we went out in the grotto and they had time to reflect on what they saw in the survey results. And it was that survey and their reflections that really drove the direction of the project for the group. And then there are opportunities for ongoing reflection. I tried as much as possible to build reflection into every one of our meetings. Some of those were shorter and some longer, depending on where we were in the process. And then a really important part of the process for us was engaging in Ignatian conversation. And that yielded really good fruit for where we were and where we needed to go, and made sure that all of the voices were heard. And I loved how the students really bought into the spirit of Ignatian conversation and listened well and waited to see what was bubbling up in the group. So that's been a really rewarding part of the program. I talked about in the beginning stages, discerning a focus and the survey. So the students before our first meeting last year and this year filled out a survey, which is available to any participating schools. There are a couple accessibility quirks that we're working out, but we're working on it. And that survey actually illuminated some interesting things for the students at St. X, and I've included two of those results on this slide. So you can see in the top slide that they overwhelmingly, this group from last year, believed that their actions had the ability to make an impact on the world. But interestingly, when they were asked if they felt hopeful about the world, they indicated that they did not feel particularly hopeful. And there were, I want to say, 30 questions on the survey. And this one about hope for the future was the only one that had that much yellow, green, or blue. It was very, very striking. So at our first meeting, I actually separated the statements from the graphs and they had to try to match up which statements went with which graphs, and they were pretty surprised by some of what they said, not by everything. So that disparity in those questions on the survey became a real focal point at our meetings. And we ended up, I should say they ended up being very focused on the power of education to cultivate hope. So on this slide, you can see that we posted this summary of our focus on Educate Magis. And this was the place where we were posting our interest area and where we would be able to connect with schools who might be interested in something similar. Further reflection focused on what makes a quality education, and they were reflecting in their notebooks. I tried to compile their ideas into this little quote napkin as a way of kind of synthesizing where we were and what we thought education could do for young people. So having registered our GAT, then we tried to connect with another school, and we connected with Istituto Massimo in Rome, and because they were interested in actually aging in the Italian population. And so we thought those ideas could perhaps complement each other. We were focused on young people, they were focused on the older generation. We collaborated with them not via Zoom, but through a Padlet. So our students posted introductions to each other and some information about our research and our project focus. And that's on the left side of that screen. And then on the right side is a picture of my current group. And we have connected with students at College Alfajiri in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. My students came in before school at 7 in the morning, and we Zoomed with the students in the DRC. And I just want to point out in that picture the smiles that you can see, because it makes me feel so good to see how happy everybody is. After that Zoom, the students came back to my classroom and they were just talking and talking about, they were in breakout rooms, and just talking about the conversations they had was energizing and really affirming. We're planning to do another Zoom maybe next week or the week after. I include this slide in the PowerPoint that I use with the students, just so that they can see all the participants across the Jesuit Global Network in this program and see themselves as, forging the frontier in this work. And then I'm going to show you, I think the time will be okay, a short video. This was the product that we created at the end of our work last year, which I shared with Catherine and other people in the network. We also showed this video at a World Affairs Council end-of-year celebration here in Cincinnati, because we applied for a grant from them and wanted to show the work we did. So in essence, as a preview for the video, the students decided that education is a key component in cultivating hope in young people. And one way that we can impact that is to provide students with hope-filled books, children's books, or globally themed books. So they applied for a grant from our World Affairs Council, got $1,000, and we worked with our local bookstore to curate a collection of, I think, around 120 children's books, which we donated to our new Jesuit Nativity School in Cincinnati, Xavier Jesuit Academy. So you're going to see our project here. Okay, that's it. Now we get to the straight talk portion of the presentation. What went well and what was challenging? Um, in terms of successes, all the things I've mentioned already were wonderful. I also think that the experience last year with those students was an excellent primer in project management, both for them and for me. We had to figure out how we could be productive even when we weren't sitting together. And that was both a challenge and a success. Not I, wrote a grant to get the money from the World Affairs Council, and we made some terrific connections with people in our community in Cincinnati. On the challenge side, I think that the program required patience when both years during the discernment process when we were trying to pick a focus. And that's been more challenging this year than last year. The group last year landed on hope and education right away. This year's group has had a more circuitous path toward a focus. And that's been challenging to me. We had a meeting last month, and I not intentionally abandoned the spiritual conversation structure, and the meeting was kind of a mess. And on the drive home, I thought, oh my gosh, that was on me. This would not have happened if we had done the spiritual conversation. It also required patience in the action phase. There were parts of, we had big, big dreams. And in terms of the ability to visit the nativity school on a regular basis and to read those books with the students and develop relationships. And we had great conversations about true accompaniment versus just giving someone something. And because we were relying on other organizations to give us grant money and other things, and because the group I was working with was a group of seniors, we didn't have as much time for that as I had hoped. And it was a little stressful at times, waiting, just kind of sitting there waiting to take action on other people, things that were out of our control. But it teaches some really valuable lessons about scale. In this year's group last month, in conversation, was getting, speaking of patience, I think a little ahead of themselves and wanting to think about action right away instead of honoring the discernment process. And the students were saying, let's get Wi-Fi for the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And I had to say, no, I don't think we're going to do that right now. Let's wait and see. Let's have some more conversation. So these are wonderful lessons. And at our school, and I'm sure it's true at yours too, there are many, many wonderful programs for students, and they want to do everything. So finding a committed group and negotiating their very busy schedules is something that has come up. But it's worked. And I didn't put it on here, but it definitely belongs, is the connection with the global partner school can be challenging just because of time zones. Last year, with the school in Rome, we struggled a little bit because of the students' after school activities and finding a time to connect. This year, it's been easier, just I think a little bit of a fluke, but it's worked out. So we're very grateful for those opportunities. Where there's a will, there's a way, definitely. I just wanted to share a couple student perspectives before I wrap up here. These are quotes from last year's participants, the students. TJ told me that participating provided a sense of personal agency. Despite the magnitude of the world's problems, it made me feel like I can contribute to solutions, which provided a sense of hope. Andrew told me that he loved knowing that we were making a real world difference while also learning a ton. It taught me how to properly identify a problem, understand it, evaluate possible solutions, and work toward a goal of solving it, all within a great team setting. And finally, Caleb said, getting to be part of a collective effort to make a difference has empowered me to want to continue connecting with people for global and communal progress. Interestingly, I've heard from several of the students in the pilot last year. They're all college freshmen, and they're in classes where they're learning about education and hope and all these things. And they send me their syllabi and an article I can read. So it's very meaningful to know that that education and experience lives on for them. And that is all I have. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have for me.